Welcome back for episode 2. We know from episode 1 that Ashley Mendoza was found dead in the bathroom of the Copper Cliffs Library. We know that she was investigating several different things that involved the lives, backgrounds, histories, or conduct of two of the mayoral candidates in Copper Cliff. And we also know that through her investigation, there was something going on with the country club itself. I'd just like to say that I am going back to the old way of making these investigation videos, analyzing everything. In episode 1 of this, I just sort of focused the analysis on what we needed to do to solve the question for that episode. And in doing that, I glazed over several things that should have been addressed. So after we wrap up box 2, I'm going to be discussing some of those things that we brushed past in the first episode that we probably should have talked about. And then moving forward, I am going to look at every piece of evidence in the box and take a closer look at all of it. So let's jump into the episode. As always with these investigation episodes, we start with the letter that our person hiring us has sent us. In this case, it is Frannie Rollins. Hey, detective. After we found that note, I took a trip up to the Copper Cliffs Country Club, the one that Ashley went to the day that she died. I tried to scope that place out, but since I'm not currently paying $5 bajillion for a membership, Larry, the front desk guy, wouldn't let me pass the lobby. Fortunately, he did let me slip him $100 for some records the club keeps from that day, even though the bill got pretty gross being balled up in my sweaty hand. And then she writes, okay, I know I was iffy on pulling anything unlawful last time, and I still stand by that, but this was offline and can't be tracked. I was hoping for a sign-in sheet or something, but we hit the jackpot, turns out. TFC was holding a private donor banquet at the club, and Larry remembered Harold showed up for his own meeting or something that day. Weird, right? I'm sending you everything Larry gave me. There's a booking schedule, a log of incident reports, a few comment cards from the suggestion box, and some receipts that he pulled. Larry also threw in some free club swag. It's pretty nice, but I don't want to own anything that would tie me to the Copper Cliffs 1%, so you can have it. And then some of the side notes. A private donor banquet, so private that a lot of his campaign didn't even know about it. Free club swag. He might be as over his job as I am. And then, as for the other 99%, they're part of the picture too. There was an organized protest outside the country club during TFC's event, led by none other than Reggie Mendoza, Ashley's older sibling. After a lot of hesitation and several drafts, I sent them an email, and they were quick to reply. We've been in close contact since, and they're a real sweetheart despite the circumstances. They're having a tough time. I think they were glad to talk to someone who wasn't just accepting what happened to Ashley. I told them that I was suspicious about Ashley's death and doing a little personal investigation, and they gave me even more stuff, which I'm sending to you along with a note from Reggie that gives it all some context. I think our investigation has given them something to focus on. And then where it says investigation, they gave me even more, and totally secret. Ashley's death, I tried to be sensitive. Reggie also suggested I look at the country club's exclusive online forum, which I didn't even know existed. It might help, but I think the police documents I took from the CCPD database will be more useful. Thanks again. Easiest hacking I've ever done. With all that, I think we've got enough to set an objective. In my opinion, we should consider the list of people Ashley wrote in her notebook as our pool of suspects and start narrowing it down. We need to eliminate one person to start from being a suspect, not like from the world. So she doesn't want us to knock somebody off. She just wants us to cross them off the list of suspects. I've been combing through the internet trying to find out what the suspects were up to that day. If we can find conclusive proof that one of them was definitely not murdering Ashley, we can cross them off of our suspect list. I'm looking through hidden backdoors, caches, and traces of stuff that's been deleted. It's a pretty gnarly, painstaking process that could take forever. Uh, it'd be real helpful if we actually knew exactly when it happened, when she was murdered. So here's what I need from you. Figure out if any of our suspects had a strong alibi, and then send me their name through the messenger. KeepSafe app. And then, in conclusion, it's funny, but sometimes I forget Ashley is gone. I think of how helpful she would have been in doing all this. Like, I would call Ashley, then I remember, and it all comes crashing back. I can only imagine how hard it's hitting Reggie. Let's do this for both of them. Signed, Frannie. All right, Frannie. I think we can help. So, moving then forward from this, we have the autopsy. And there's a lot of stuff, and I want to get to some of it. I'm going to really focus on the first 2 pages and the body diagram. And then the 4th page, I think we don't really need to focus on. I don't think there's anything that's going to be helpful or prove necessary for the investigation. It's just nonsense filler about brain dimension and liver size and et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, authorized by Alejandro Duarte, Chief of Flagstaff Police Department. So clearly Copper Cliffs is too small to have their own coroner or police department. And I should have looked. I should have Googled it. I don't know if Copper Cliffs is a real place, but apparently it's supposed to be, or it is in or around Flagstaff, Arizona. So deceased adult female with early signs of rigor mortis in face and post-mortem lividity. Mechanism of death is asphyxiation by closure of air passage of the neck as a result of external pressure on the neck, as supposed by paramortem fracture on the hyoid bone and bruising on the neck. Let me try that again. I'm going to read that one more time just to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Mechanism of death is asphyxiation by closure of the air passages of the back of the neck as a result of external pressure on the neck, as supported by paramortem fracture on hyoid bone and bruising on the neck. See, I sounded like I knew what I was talking about right there. Postmortem puncture marks found in the left antecubital area. Postmortem bruising around the diameter of the antecubital area. Fractured occipital bone consistent with paramortem injuries. Cause of death: from the anatomic findings and pertinent history, I ascribe the cause of death to be a cerebral hypoxia, a lack of oxygen to the brain, due to or as a consequence of suppression of unconscious breathing regulation. Manner of death: homicide. Okay, so we get the point. Let's just get to the summary. The decedent was a 29-year-old Latina female. Her body was found in the Copper Library. Her body was seated upright on a toilet. The victim's hyoid bone was fractured with paramortem bruising around the neck. Bruises left a particular fingerprint found on the victim's neck along with latex residue. Multiple puncture wounds surrounded by postmortem bruising were found on the inside of the left elbow. A paramortem blunt force injury was found on the victim's skull. The presence of a partial fingerprint which does not appear to match the victim alongside the skull injury, the shape and position of which do not seem to match with any of the items or pieces of furniture in the library, suggests that another person was present at time of death. This additional person likely strangled the victim to death. Further investigation on the part of CCPD is warranted. Documents and evidence examined, blah, blah, blah. Identification: a complete postmortem examination was performed on the body of Ashley Mendoza, who was identified by her driver's license and confirmed by her sibling Reggie Mendoza. So then, going forward, let's just look at the fully developed, well-nourished Latina female adult with blunt force injuries to the neck and back of head. Singular thumb impression. Contusions on the neck suggest complete two-handed grasp of the assailant. Partial latent thumbprints detected the traces of latex residue. cranial bruising on the back of the head, bruising on the left antecubital area caused by tourniquet consistent with postmortem injuries. These punctures in the left antebrachium consistent with perimortem injuries. Subdermal swelling beneath skin or left antebrachium fluid from which was extracted and sent for testing. See results in preliminary toxicology. So I'm struggling with the words. I don't know why, because I know what they are. So the perimortem injuries, I believe they're saying after death. They're saying that the puncture wounds, that the bruising, all of that took place after the death. Toxicology, discussed further in the internal examination section of the report, found that a dose of fentanyl had been injected into the left antecubital area but not circulated into the bloodstream. The lack of inflammation on the subcutaneous tissue that surrounds the bruising to the inner elbow suggests that these punctures were made post-mortem, although within half an hour of death. Inflammation in the subcutaneous tissue that surrounds the bruising in the cranium suggests that the blunt force injury took place prior to death, but was not the direct cause. There was no evidence of significant natural disease processes. The victim appears to have been struck in the head with a blunt object and strangled by an unknown individual. The strangulation caused the victim's death. The victim's left antecubital area was then injected with a needle 3 times. Okay, so body temperature taken at the scene of rigor and liver mortis approximate the time of death between 7:45 and 8:15 p.m. That's the important part. 7:45 and 8:15. And then just looking, let's explain what they're saying. They're saying that Ashley was hit in the back of the head. They're saying that then it probably dazed her. She was then, while she was incapacitated, knocked out, dazed, whatever, she was then strangled to death around the neck with 2 hands. They're also then saying that she has bruises on her upper arm that are consistent with when you watch in movies or whatever, somebody injecting drugs into their system, or even when you go to the doctor and they take blood, they tie off your upper arm to help make the vein larger. So that whoever did this tied off Ashley's upper arm and then tried to inject fentanyl into her system to make it look like she OD'd. The problem is, once you die and your heart stops pumping, your blood stops circulating. So they injected fentanyl into her arm, but it didn't circulate throughout her body, and that's what the coroner is saying, that they have traces of fentanyl right around the puncture wounds, but there are no traces of fentanyl in her body because it didn't circulate. And so really that's the important gets from the coroner's report, is that she was hit in the head, strangled, and then they tried to inject her with fentanyl and they punctured it into her arm, but it didn't circulate throughout her body. That's the moral of that story. So then that brings us to the Copper Cliffs Police Department police report from that night. At 10:47 p.m., dispatch received a 911 call reporting the discovery of a dead body in the upstairs women's bathroom of the Copper Library. Caller identified themselves as Sue Gareths, Copper Cliffs Department of Public Works janitor. I was dispatched and arrived at the scene at 10:56. I was met with Ms. Gareths, who identified herself as the caller, at the front entrance of the library. She led me to the upstairs bathroom. No other persons were present at the scene. After confirming the presence of the body, I recognized the victim as Ashley Mendoza, a local reporter. I pronounced the victim dead at 11:04 p.m. by visual observation that she was not breathing, and by tactile observation that she had no pulse or heartbeat. I observed that the victim was sitting on the toilet in the last stall, fully clothed. The victim's lap was soaked with urine. There were no signs of bruising around the neck, possibly from before the incident of death. There were signs of bruising around the neck, possibly before the incident of death, There was a syringe in the victim's lap and nothing inside. The victim's left arm was tied off with a tourniquet, and the inside of her elbow had several puncture wounds where it looked like a needle had been. I concluded that a medical examination was necessary to determine if the victim died as a result of accidental overdose, foul play, or natural causes. We'll confirm after routine autopsy. The victim's belongings will be marked and bagged in evidence, etc., etc. Addendum. After reviewing the autopsy performed by the county coroner, it is this officer's conclusion that the deceased's death was the result of an intentional homicide, not accidental overdose, as was initially speculated, and should be investigated as such. So that is the opinion of the police department. They're saying, yep, she was no doubt killed. And so I just think it's funny that whoever killed her, like, they didn't think an autopsy was going to be done. They don't understand. They've never watched Law and Order or CSI or any of those other shows that tell you that once the body's heart stops, like, everything stops circulating, everything stops flowing. I don't know. So it makes me wonder what the knowledge base or the intelligence of the killer is. But we'll have to wait and see. So then the witness statements. And I don't know, honestly, if they're all that important. The witness statement from the cleaning lady, I don't think is important. I'll read the witness statement from Reggie. I was at the protest outside the country club. Ashley showed up later to work on a story. She said she had to talk to the people inside. I didn't see her again until later when I heard someone shouting. Judith Richards was yelling at Ashley about something, very upset. I started to move towards Ashley and saw security physically pulling Judith away. Like they were warned she was going to attack Ashley. Ashley said she was physically okay, but she was clearly upset. She said she was going to file a restraining order. There's history there. Judith has been trolling Ashley's blog. Ash gave me some stuff to hold on to for her. We had a hug and she left. A quick hug, I'm sorry, and she left. I can't read Reggie's handwriting. I stayed to clean up and didn't leave until 9. When I got home, I saw that I missed a call from Ash. She left me a message at 7:34 saying she was going to be home late and apologizing that she wouldn't be back in time to make dinner, even though it was her night to cook. That's it. That's the last thing that that she ever said to me. Ashley didn't do drugs. If that's what you want, if that's what you think, you don't know her at all. Have you asked Judith Richards where she was when my sister died, or what they were arguing about? CCPD witness alibi corroborated by several people at the protest. So I guess the police have ruled Reggie out. Not that I ever suspected Reggie, but they're obviously corroborating his alibi. And then I just don't think the cleaning lady's story is important. It just talks about how she saw that there were feet in the stall and yelled that she had to go and realized that the person wasn't responding. And so she peeked between the door and the stall and saw the person appeared dead or asleep. And so she busted open the door. And that's when she realized Ashley was dead. She called 911. And that's really the whole thing from the cleaning lady, the janitor. So then that brings us to the front office request forwarding log. And this is actually important for the sake of what we have to accomplish in this investigation. So, Gabrielle DeSoto requested an official complaint be filed for food at the kickoff buffet being sold by the time she got there. So, you'll see that reported by club member YGD381, you will see that they don't use club member names. They use membership numbers to discuss anything and everything involving interactions with the club members, for the most part. Urgent. High window lobby blinds need to be drawn ASAP. They are interfering with speech visibly guessed is very adamant that this be done now. Please confirm with her when complete. Guest member UIR 173. So they differentiate, even if you're a guest, and UIR 173 is a guest at the club that day, but you still get a number. You get your own individual number. So that is going to pertain as we try to investigate and figure out who was where, did what, when. Incident 1034, urgent. Lawn mowing and any other noisy maintenance routine should be immediately postponed for the next 3 hours to not conflict with the event. That was also reported by guest member UIR 173. Urgent. Guest requests new ice for events bottled water buckets. Concerned about current rate of melting. Once again, guest UIR 173. And then employee tennis instructor Christian Bush demanded his complaint be worded exactly as he dictated. I have been entirely disrespected. My 6 o'clock showed up for all of 2 seconds before being distracted by his phone and running off to text for the rest of his appointment. This is after having my 5 o'clock canceled last minute earlier today. This is a waste of my time. The club needs to treat their employees better, and that involves having stricter rules for who we admit. We should not be allowing people of public disrepute to make reservations even if they are guests of members. His ID is HTW872 GST. I expect swift follow-up. All right, fair enough. Requesting clean in women's bathroom stall 3, toilet is clogged. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? The important ones we need to look at. And this is the first of the most important. Reported by club member YGD381. Escalating argument between ex-convict of TFC's... What? You know what? It's dim here. Let me try something. And I apologize for my inept reading today. Maybe it's the lighting. Okay. Let me... Done moving the light. Escalating argument between ex-convict and TFC's assistant outside the canyon. The aggressor is described as riled up and shouting something about final chances. And so details. Security broke up an argument and have seen both guest members off the premises of the country club. Palm 659 and HTW 872 guests should be banned from the club. So we know that. So now that we know that Palm 659 and HTW 872, we know that one of them works for Thomas Ford Cross's campaign as the assistant, which is Sebastian Dyer, and we also know that one of them is Lewis, and his last name skips my mind, but it's the guy that works for Harry Richards. So we're getting closer to being able to sort through names and membership numbers. So then the next one I wanted to read was, well, I'll just read them all. So reported by guest member UIR 173, once again, guest made several complicated requests concerning instructions for staff treatment and monitoring of member VPG 017. Staff were advised to politely decline further requests from UIR 173. So UIR 173 is just being very demanding and has been annoying the staff all day, and the staff is completely over it. Urgent. 2 children are running amok in the lobby unsupervised. Claim to be dropped off by their babysitter. Refuse to say who their parent is. They have knocked over potted palm. Parents need to be identified and retrieved immediately. And then another one that's really important is the incident 1041, requesting cleanup after the new membership meeting has wrapped up. A small metal shot glass was thrown, resulting in shattered glass from the broken table. Table will need to be replaced, and a small amount of spilled alcohol. No one was seriously hurt. Members intend to finish the meeting, so please come after 9 p.m. to clean up. And that request was logged in at 8:24 p.m. And that's key to eliminating our suspect. And then the bottom one is just the janitorial staff complaining about needing more supplies. So, looking at the next piece of evidence, we have the daily schedule. And it lets us know that TFC's people have booked the VIP room for an event, and so they can't let the membership committee go long excuse me, in the VIP room. And so that right there tells me that VPG 017 is the membership number for Thomas Ford Cross. And that matches with the other incidents that took place. VPG 017 in the lobby at 4 and 4:30 complaining about the light level. And so we know without a doubt that VPG 017 is Thomas Ford Cross. And I'm trying to scan this to see if there's anything else. No, the rest of it is just scrambling for this meeting to solve the situation. I do want to, give me 1 second. I need to find something. I want to go back real quick to incident number 1033. And I know we just read this, but I forgot to emphasize this. High window lobby blinds need to be drawn ASAP. Oh, that's not... Okay, so I was wrong. So let's do this all over again. High window blinds need to be drawn ASAP. They're interfering with speech visibility. Guest is very adamant that this is done now. Please confirm with her when complete. And that was at 6:04 p.m. But it says, please confirm with her when complete. So we're trying to figure out the membership numbers for the people on the Thomas Ford Cross campaign. And so at 6 p.m. in the lobby is when she needed the stuff drawn for Thomas Ford Cross. But that makes UIR 173, what is her name? I can't think of her name. I'll come to it. Kim something, and I don't know why the rest of it is blanking. But so now we know UIR 173 is Kim. And so we also then know that they said that it was Thomas Ford Cross's assistant who was removed from the club, and he had a different number than UIR 173. So that tells us that Sebastian is the member who was removed. Where is that? So Sebastian is Palm 659, I believe. And so we're starting to narrow down the list of who's who in this whole situation here. So let's get to who's who. So this is the campaign flyer. And as you can see, we have guests, members, their numbers, and we also have what turned out to be a shift cipher. And she tells us right there that the shift is by 1. So VPG 017 turns out to be Thomas Ford Cross. We know that because of all the rooms that he reserved for his campaign events. Palm 659 turns out to be Sebastian Dyer because Palm 659 is a guest of Thomas Ford Cross. But we already know that UIR 173 was referred to as a her, and that has to be Kim Barton. So Sebastian Dyer was kicked out of the country club. We know from so we know that Louis Vanzetti is HTW 872 because we know who Palm 659 is. So if Louis Vanzetti is HTW 872, and when you decode the MFXJT, when you shift it, it spells Louis. So that's how we know for sure that that's Louis Vanzetti, which means Louis Vanzetti is a guest of BZH 224, which is Harold Richards. and that means that MAZ 481 has to be Judith Richards. So we've narrowed that down. We know that the kids belong to Harold. So moving forward from there, we have the bar receipts, and I've put at the top, going by the member ID, who those bar receipts belong to. So we have Harold at 7 o'clock having 2 ribeye steaks, a Caesar salad, a virgin mojito because he doesn't drink, and a Blue Elk bourbon, who I'm going to assume maybe belongs to his wife, but I don't know. I don't know who else it would belong to. The Thomas Ford Cross bar tab we knew was going to be long because it was mentioned that Thomas Ford Cross was buying drinks for people. And then the other Harold Richards bar tab is 2 Shirley Temples and a medium pineapple pizza. I'm assuming, once again, that that's what that is. And that probably is why his kids were running wild, because they were unsupervised in the first place. So that's what we have for the bar receipts. I don't know that there's anything in there that we need to really concentrate on other than what we've mentioned, which is figuring out what receipt belonged to who. I do note that at the top of the Copper Cliffs bar receipts, there are different logos, and I also know that those same logos are on the napkin. There's different logos in all 4 corners of the napkin, and when we look at the napkin, we'll get to that. I don't know anything else other than that, and I know that antler deer man is the logo that's on the cover of the metal thing that we received in our box. So then the comment cards, and I think the only thing that matters here in the comment cards is MAZ 481, who we know to be Judith Richards, was saying, "Thank you for adding Mimosa Yoga to the schedule this year. It is the only column in my week, and now I never miss a class." And then, just as a whatever to that, her being happy about Mimosa Yoga, we have LKE 306. "Thank you, management, for all you do. My suggestion is that if there are class participants that are clearly not in functional state, they should not be allowed to take the class, especially when it concerns Mimosa Yoga." So I think Judith Richards is going to Mimosa Yoga a little drunk, and LKE 306 does not take too kindly to that. So then we get to the High Fences, which is the secret blog of the club membership. And hi, Coppercliffs community. As you all know, the new membership for the club is being decided today. We are very excited to welcome a few chosen members into our esteemed community. If you haven't submitted your referral, make sure you get it to the front office before 4 p.m. As a reminder, the membership committee members are reassigned every year to ensure a fair and impartial system. All members of the committee must be present for new membership to be decided. This year's committee members are, and MAZ 481 shows up on the list of committee members. So we know that Judith Richards is on the committee, the new membership committee. Does anyone know if we will be adding an extra spot to replace Allison, whoever Allison is? Allison left? She didn't move, did she? No, but she might be soon. I guess her dad's stay at the convalescent center has been bleeding her dry. Can't afford the club membership. Oh, that's so sad. Somebody should take a collection or something. And then someone says, "I can hardly believe it myself. I just saw Judith Richards flat out assault a protester not 15 minutes ago. Security had to pull them apart. Judith was talking with the protester outside, not far from the side door. The protester was pretty with dark hair and not blah blah blah. And as much as I don't like protesters, this one didn't seem to be making such racket. I think I saw Judith hit her with her fist. Can anyone confirm? I don't know what you could have been arguing about, what they could have been arguing about that resulted in that. And that happened at 4:51. So sometime around 4:45 or so, I guess, is when Ashley was assaulted. I know Judith is known for getting into her drink early at the club, but I don't ever think she had one sip yet. The protester was Ashley Mendoza, the reporter who wrote those articles on the Mayor and Harold Richards too. I wonder if that's what the fight was about. I'm not surprised, to be honest. Judith is a spicy firecracker, and if Mendoza was prodding her about Harold's illegitimate child, which I bet she was, I think Judy was completely in her right to deck her. Don't come for Judith Richards. Ha. And then Rusty Thorpe says, Tom, you're out of your mind, as is Judith. This is completely unacceptable behavior for a member of our community. Furthermore, rumors are already spreading and exacerbating the incident. My wife heard that Judith got into two fist fights that day, one with a professional boxer. It's bringing our community name down. I'm even thinking of making a complaint to the Copper Cliffs membership committee. The whole incident was just unsightly. Good luck with that. You know who's on the committee this year, right? The reporter shouldn't have even been that close to the club. P.S. I heard it was 3 fights and she knocked out someone's tooth. The legacy of Judith Richards, the lore. That's funny. It's ridiculous that the club even allowed the protest to happen, even if they were only in the parking lot, especially on the day the mayor of our town is speaking. I expected better of the club. I don't pay member dues every year to get signs waved in my face when I'm coming in, or hear angry chants while I'm trying to relax during a massage. Of course, Sean, you don't. Tom Rubin, to be clear, I love Ashley Mendoza's work. Let the truth be known to the masses, I say, and she's a sweetheart. I hope she writes an article exposing Judith's mess to the world. So all of this was posted before Ashley died. And then Judith pipes up. If I was angry with people, it's because they did something to earn that anger. For your information, Harold and I, like any other couple, have arguments, and that frustration cuts to other parts of my life sometimes. But we also have a strong bond of trust that allows us to overcome obstacles as a team. There is no mess. I have nothing to apologize for, and I'll thank you to not make sport of my personal life. Yes, ma'am, Judith. So, more High Fences post, because the drama of the country club is outstanding. Did anyone at the event see my blue cardigan at the club today? I may have left it at the juice bar. Has anyone seen it? It's a light blue cashmere and had a TFC button pinned to it. If you find it, please don't get it wet. It's very hard to wash. Thanks. So Daniela lost her blue cardigan. And Al, I saw a red sweatshirt in the men's lounge, if that's what you're looking for. Okay, how does blue cardigan... Oh, Al. Al, no. As detailed in my original post, I'm looking for a blue cardigan, and I'm not a man. Just trying to help. All right, Al, I get it. I see you trying to be helpful, Al. Try checking the lost and found. They hold on to stuff forever. Okay. Now, the important part of this, or the confusing part of this, depending on how you look at it. Question about Making Change presentation. Hi, everyone. Did anyone else go to the Making Change as TFC's teammate talk just a bit ago? I'm feeling motivated to go on the campaign trail now for TFC. I do have one question about the way donations collected and distributed to the campaign funds. I might have just missed it, but it seems like not all the campaign funds were accounted for in the percentages presented, the way she laid it out. If someone could help talk me through this, I'd very much appreciate it. I hope to talk with the speaker about it afterwards, but she had to hurry off to help with the keynote speech, and I didn't get a chance to. Okay, and then Nico's like, oh, I saw the discrepancy as well, but I think it was just a matter of how it was presented. I got to chat with Kim briefly later during TFC's keynote speech, but she was rather occupied. For good reason, the sun was blinding half the crowd. And then, yeah, she had to leave the country club, but still the way she explained the discrepancy makes sense. DM me if you want to talk later. So I'm going to stop there because they're saying she had to leave the country club. But with the numbers that we were given, the membership, the ID numbers that we were given, she wasn't the one that got into the argument with Lewis. So that's where I'm confused. Why did she have to leave the country club? You know, unless she had to leave for a different reason, and maybe that'll be worked out in later episodes. But yeah, so She left the whole event early. Um, Meanwhile, Sebastian was kicked out of the event early. And so that's two members of the TFC campaign, unless she had to leave the country club. Hold on. Let's read further this. I voted for TFC last election, but I heard tonight that TFC was drinking like a lot, and then right from the bar he got into his car and drove away. I don't think that's responsible mayoral behavior. When I was talking to him at the Canyons, he seemed perfectly in control of his facilities. He bought drinks for everyone at the bar, too. I did get to talking to Mr. Richards as well, at a different time in the evening, of course. I doubt they willingly go within 20 feet of each other. And I admit I enjoyed speaking to him on a number of current issues, and then I thought I would more than I thought I would. But lamentably, I just can't take the man seriously if he can't drink. I get it. I mean, yeah, TFC and a few of the guys were supposed to meet at the Dippers for an after party, but he never showed up. I was kind of worried if he was dead in a ditch somewhere, but I think he knows his limits. Okay, so TFC left, and he seemed to be fine. But for whatever reason, Kim and Sebastian both appear to have left early. So that brings us to the breakdown of the country club brochure. And I just wanted to point out that the numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 are the 4 corners bars, which makes sense. But then those circles are doors to the outside, and they just comment that they're left open. They're not locked. And that's really the only thing that I think for now matters in this. I don't know if that's going to come into play later, if that's going to be how Ashley got into the country club or whatever. I don't know any of that. That brings us to Reggie's letter. And in Reggie's letter, hi Frannie, thanks for reaching out. It was good to hear from someone who was not just stuck. My dad's thrown himself into work, and my mom's coping but not talking about it. I can see why Ashley enjoyed meeting you. She liked that you have heart and that she could trust you. I'm sending the papers Ash gave me the day that she died. It's just a pamphlet and a flyer from the country club. It was probably silly to hang on to this stuff, but it was the last thing she asked me to do for her, and I keep expecting her to come back. I think she'd probably want you to have this stuff, though, under the circumstances. Ash would do exactly what you're doing if I had been murdered. She was always the one who got to the bottom of things. I want to do whatever I can to live up to her name. Don't want to be stuck anymore. We need justice and closure, and right now we don't have either. So if there's anything else I can do for you, you can count on me. Let me know what you find. Sincerely grateful, Reggie. And that brings us to the loose items in the box. And the napkin, first, the cup was really cool. Like, that surprised me. When I opened it up, and it opened easily. It was supposed to open. I opened it up, and there was a little collapsible cup inside. I thought that was cool. But then if you look at the napkin, the images on the napkin sort of match some of the images on the receipts. And I don't know what all those mean. I don't know if those are levels of membership. I don't really know what that is. But that's kind of cool. And so, to wrap it up, to sum up what we were supposed to figure out in this episode, Judith was in the new membership meeting, requesting cleanup after the new membership meeting has wrapped. A small metal shot glass was thrown, resulting in a shattered glass from a broken table. The table will need to be replaced. And a small amount of spilled alcohol. No one was seriously hurt. Members intend to finish the meeting, so please come after 9 to clean up. And the time of that was 8:24 p.m. Body temperature taken at the scene of rigor and livor mortis approximate the time of death between 7:45 and 8:15. So we know, given all that stuff, that Judith Richards was in a committee meeting at the time that Ashley Mendoza was killed. And so, knowing that, we are going to jump here into the whole wrap up for this And we're going to see what happens when we send the info to Frannie that Judith Richards is the one who we're eliminating. So when you tell Frannie that Judith Richards is the one we're eliminating, she replies back to you and says, "Score, I found a video of her flipping out on someone. Judging from the time, it's from the membership meeting. Looks like the original video was taken down, but searching specifically for Judith, I found another site hosting it here." And so let's take a look at the fight video.
Excuse me? What did you say?
It wasn't about you.
How dare you say that? Say that to my face, Gertie!
Oh, calm down.
You think you know everything about me? You don't know a goddamn thing about me! You think my life is just an open book for you to make fun of?
What is wrong with you?
Your damn husband is such a model of fidelity.
Okay, Judy, you're still worked up from that reporter earlier.
And none of you better believe a thing that Mendoza girl says. Just stirring up drama. Trying to sink our campaign? What? Why would I know anything about the crash? Or Angel, whatever. None of you better believe a word. Not one word.
Let's just try and calm down.
Just you watch. Once we're in office, let's see just what that little brat has to say. And you too, Gertie.
I'm getting out of here.
That's it. Run away. Run away in the bathroom!
Okay, it's just after 8. We're halfway through, and we've had a long day. Should we take 5? Martha, are you seriously filming?
Heck yeah, Martha was seriously filming. That was some important stuff there. So, that is, I'm just trying to figure out where to go from there. Let's go back here. Okay. Dang, that's Judith's second fight of the night. What a bruiser. Anyways, nice work. Judith seems really pissed. Ashley must have been really pushing about the car crash. Judith seemed to get that unhinged over nothing. I think that's where we need to look next. Sit tight. Keep an eye on your mailbox, the real one. I'll send you more stuff when I get my hands on something that'll be helpful. Bye for now, and thanks. Okay, so let's go back, and that wraps up this part of the investigation. But let's discuss a couple of things that I glossed over last week and I should have been a little bit more in depth about. I just want to jump back into the story of Louis Vanzetti. He's the ex-con that they keep talking about, the crash that happened, that he was convicted for killing 2 people, Wilkes and King. Vanzetti and Richards go way back, but he doesn't seem to be too close with Judith. Sometimes speaks with Dyer and Barton as part of his political office role. And then the other thing just says that he doesn't really speak. He shouts at Barton and Dyer. And then the other thing from this I want to bring up before we get back into Louis Vanzetti is that in this article, it mentions the CEO of Valdavan, Benjamin Owens. And that's what all these protests are about, is that Valdavan is moving into the area, or the CEO wants, the corporation wants to purchase local land, or the CEO wants to purchase local land, and that has everybody in an uproar. We don't know what Valdavan does. We don't know anything about them. We just know that people aren't happy. So let's go into Ashley's blog, because this is where I glossed over. She has a whole blog post about the accident and Louis Vanzetti that I think is important for us to take a look at. So let's just go here, into the blog. Mayor, she wrote, an unexpected addition to the Richards campaign. Who is Louis Vanzetti? Most of the citizens of Copper Cliffs already understand why Harold Richards chose to hire Louis Vanzetti as his campaign. Most of these citizens of Coppercliff already understand why Harold Richards' choice to hire Louis Vanzetti as his campaign manager was controversial. Louis Vanzetti was the man responsible for the decade-old local tragedy known as the Coppercliffs car crash. Vanzetti was not born in Coppercliffs. His association with the town came through his friendship with Harold Richards. Vanzetti attended the same prestigious university as Richards. Vanzetti was on a full-ride academic scholarship, while Richards' wealth afforded him acceptance into the school. The two men first met in Economics 101 class. They were made inseparable friends until one cold and tragic night. On a drive home from a charity auction at the Coppercliffs Country Club with Richards, the 24-year-old intoxicated Vanzetti accidentally drove his car directly into a roadside pine tree, instantly killing the backseat passengers, young socialites Isabel King and Morgana Wilkes. Vanzetti was arrested on 2 counts of vehicular manslaughter and 1 for driving while intoxicated. He pled guilty to all 3 counts without putting up much of a legal defense. Richards served as a character witness for Vanzetti, not going so far as to pay his bail and the fees for a year-long legal process in full. The story of the crash was told to a generation of citizens so much that Vanzetti himself ended up serving as not only a cautionary tale, but also as a kind of insulting slang. Over the years, people began to refer to driving drunk as pulling a Lewis or getting a Vanzetti. But the Vanzetti who emerged from a decade-long prison sentence looks to be more in control and reliable than anyone would imagine. When asked about his new campaign manager's past, Richard had this to say: "Lewis is the strongest man I know, physically, emotionally, and morally. Something terrible happened 10 years ago, and he's paid for that mistake. Now he is trying to move on, and I intend to help him in that process in any way that I can, as an employer or as a friend. It is unclear now if all of Vanzetti's negative reputation in Coppercliffs will impact Richard's chance for election. For our collective consideration, I'll throw the question into the comments. Will Vanzetti's addition to the Richards team sway your votes in one way or the other?" So, maybe I've watched too many TV shows. Maybe I am suspicious. Maybe it's whatever. I don't think that Louis Vanzetti was driving the car that killed those women. I think Harry Richards was driving the car that killed those women. I think Harry Richards, the reason Louis didn't put up much of an argument is that he was either paid off or whatever to do that. It just seems all too suspicious, especially when you consider the fact that a year after the accident, Harold Richards went into rehab for drinking. And he didn't just go into rehab. Don't forget, we're in Arizona. Harold Richards went into rehab in Canada. So I feel like the only reason that you go that far away from home is because you have a name, a well-known name in the community. And you need to go someplace where the stories that get told to a counselor or to whatever in rehab don't get leaked out, where nobody knows you. And so I just think the whole situation with the accident, why would you investigate an accident if the case has already been decided, unless the accident wasn't the fault of who's taking the blame for it, if all that makes sense. So I just think that's important to cover, because I think that's going to be a big factor in future episodes. So we did what we were set out to do. We decided that Judith Richards had an alibi. We let Frannie know. Frannie was like, "Yep, you're right." And now we're just waiting. We heard a name. Judith in a rant said something about, "I don't know who Angel is." I don't know who Angel is either. I haven't seen the name Angel come up other than that video that Judith was angry and drunk and yelling about. So we'll have to wait and see who Angel is. Anyhow, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Please remember, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, leave them down below and I'll be happy to respond. And once again, I hope you all have a great week.